Hello, my name is Egon Cholakian. I am an intelligence educator. I prepare intelligence personnel for clandestine service.
At first glance, this might just look like a video of a normal guy who's about to sit down and explain some stuff. But what if I told you that this guy has several videos exceeding 2 to 3 hours in length, where he sits almost completely unmoving for the entire duration, speaking in the same monotone cadence about how humanity is going to be completely demolished by a severe influx of earthquakes in the coming months, claiming that Russia has plans to obliterate the entire world, claiming that the United States is soon to enter another civil war. Throughout the process of researching for my videos, I find myself on some very strange corners of the internet. Now, these days, a lot of what might seem truly weird at first just turns out to be some art project or some hoax made up to gain popularity. Today, however, I want to discuss one of the weirdest rabbit holes I've ever stumbled upon. And aside from a couple other videos on YouTube, I have found very little extensive coverage of this topic on the internet. Today, we're going to be talking about how the videos on this YouTube channel relate to Ukrainian propaganda, artificial intelligence, and a pseudoscientific new religious movement called Allatra, which a lot of people might consider to be a cult. So go ahead and grab a cold Dr. Pepper, and let's go down the rabbit hole of Allatra. Alright, so first of all, who is the guy talking in these videos? All of these videos are on a YouTube channel called Earth Save Science Collaborative, and at the beginning of each of his videos, he introduces himself as
Egon Cholakian, and I am a national security expert, a representative of Allatra, and a particle physicist.
And then launches right into his urgent message. If you just Google his name, you might find his LinkedIn, where he claims to be a U.S. registered federal lobbyist in the U.S. Department of State, Department of Defense, and at the White House. He also claims to have worked in the executive office of the president and to have graduated from Harvard. Overall, this guy's accomplishments are completely out of control, to the point where it's pretty unbelievable, especially because of the complete lack of any available information about him. Outside of his LinkedIn, the only other place I was able to find any helpful information about him was on his own website. This website is titled Earth Save Science Collaborative, the same as the YouTube channel. The About section of the website sums up a lot of Egon's work and makes a lot of very bold claims. The website outlines how Egon Cholakian started out as a civil law attorney / particle physicist, but now works in national security and intelligence, and is a Capitol Hill governmental affairs advisor. The website also claims that Egon has worked with the likes of Richard Nixon, Gerald Ford, Jimmy Carter, and Ronald Reagan, all while they were in office, and also worked with George Bush before he was in office. Perhaps the strangest and most eye-opening part of the website, however, is this slideshow containing a bunch of pictures of Egon Cholakian with various different political figures, some of which look to be completely AI generated. For example, take a look at this picture. This is supposed to be a picture of Egon standing next to Stansfield Turner, who was the head of the CIA during the Carter administration. But look at Turner's head. That's not how humans are supposed to look. This image as well. This is supposed to be evidence of a big project that Egon worked on, but these pictures are clearly AI generated. Now, at this point, I think it's safe to say that Egon Cholakian is fabricating a lot of details on his resume. I mean, there is literally not a single mention of his name from any credible sources on the internet that would corroborate his claims of working in such powerful positions. And realistically, if he had worked with 5 US presidents, there would be a lot more public information about him than there is. Let's revisit his YouTube channel. Egon's most popular video has about 150,000 views, and is over 3.5 hours long. Throughout the entire video, Egon moves almost not at all, with his hands remaining in pretty much the same position the whole time. In fact, the only part of his body that seems to visibly move throughout most of the video is his face. Now, this has led to a lot of speculation on the internet about whether or not this guy is even real. Now, when you look at these 3-hour-long videos on his YouTube channel and see that he's sitting unmoving for such long periods of time and speaking in the same monotone voice the whole time, it's easy to say that Egon Cholakian is not a real person, that all this footage of him is completely AI generated, or at the very least a deepfake of a still image. However, I don't think this is the case, and I have quite a few reasons why. First of all, usually the most obvious tell if footage is artificially generated or not is simple continuity. Even today, it's very difficult for AI AI to replicate realistic finger movement without melding fingers together or shooting new fingers out of nowhere on somebody's hand. And with the small number of times Egon moves his hands in these videos, they actually do look pretty realistic. And keep in mind, this video was uploaded over a year ago, when artificial intelligence was way less advanced. Beyond the finger movement, however, to see how much Egon's lower body moves throughout the video, we can use what's called a difference map. In video editing and photo editing programs, you're often given the option to change the blending mode of a photo or video layer. The blending mode of a photo is just the way it interacts with any photo layered below it. Because each individual pixel has a different numerical value indicating its color, blending mode can just be seen as a mathematical equation for what a pixel will do with the pixel in the layer below it. The difference blending mode, when applied to a layer on top of plain white, will just display that layer in invert colors. When applied to a layer over top of an identical layer, it will display plain black because the pixel values cancel out. And bringing this back to Dr. Cholakian, if we take one frame of Egon sitting down at his desk, and then take another frame 30 minutes later, overlay the later frame on top of the earlier one, and apply the difference blending mode to the top layer, we should be able to see how much Egon has moved. And as you can see, both Egon and the camera move substantially from different points in the video. Also, you can kind of see his eyes move very slightly from side to side, likely indicating that he's reading off of a teleprompter. So I just want to recap here. Egon Cholakian is a very real human being. He just woefully embellishes his accomplishments and makes YouTube videos that really make him look like he's AI generated. And although I feel like Egon's body and eye movement dispels the idea that these videos are completely AI generated, I definitely think that a lot of the process of making these videos is fueled by AI. Almost all of the engagement with these videos in the comments are clearly written by AI, and if you go to some of the commenters' uploads, they're not even trying to hide it. Almost all of these comments are just, "Thank you, Egon," and then like a party hat emoji. So clearly a lot of the engagement with these videos comes from AI, but we'll get into that a little bit later. Now, while I do believe that Egon Cholakian is a real guy, and I don't think that these videos are being completely generated by AI, I think it's very likely that these videos of Egon talking are deepfakes of still images. Now, the term deepfake does just refer to any footage or photo depicting a human that is generated by AI, but in this case, I'm talking about facial reanimation deepfaking.
He's suggesting it came out of nowhere. What we subsequently learned is it may have come from the former president or his legal team acting in bad faith. This is a deepfake example of what is possible with powerful computer and editing. It took around 72 hours to create this example from scratch using extremely powerful GPU.
How easily do you think someone could replicate you?
Well, it happened to a former American university student. She says someone used videos from her Instagram to make deep fakes of her and then tried to catfish an unsuspecting man.
Hello, Johnny. I'm doing this video to prove that I'm the one chatting with you.
When Amanda Aguilar saw this video, she was stunned. It looked just like her, but it wasn't her.
And I love the video you sent. You look amazing.
It was a deep fake, the work of a scammer, someone who had taken a real video Amanda had posted on Instagram.
Hello, everyone. Oh my gosh.
This technology can, with only a still image of someone's face, generate a video of the person speaking words that they didn't really say, with their mouth and face matching what is being said. There are apps that have done things like this for years, where you can make someone sing the lyrics to a song with a picture of their face. Only in recent years, however, has facial reanimation become a real concern for high publicity figures.
The newest Tesla feature is that the seat will take a high resolution scan of your balls.
Now, there are two main reasons that I think it's possible that these videos of Egon are deepfakes. First is purely visual. When the camera periodically cuts to close-ups on Egon's face while he's speaking, there is a clear difference in clarity separating his eyes and forehead from his mouth and neck, which is the part of his face that's moving. When he's talking, his mouth and lower head area appears subtly but visibly blurrier than the relatively static top half of his head. The second reason is that I found a video from November of 2024 of Egon Cholakian speaking at COP29, which was the 2024 United Nations Climate Change Conference. Now, what's interesting is that when Egon talks in this video, he's moving his hands a lot while he speaks.
In our changing climate.
Happy to do so, but let me correct your English, my friend. It is not a link, it is one and the same. There is no division whatsoever. Let me take it from this point and then stretch it out a little further.
This is a lot different than in his YouTube videos, however, where for hours at a time, his hands rest in the same position on his desk. Now, there are two ways we can look at this. Either you can choose to believe that this clear difference in the way Egon gesticulates from candid footage to footage being uploaded by Egon is indicative that he's being deep-faked in his videos. Or, what I think is more likely is that because Egon is clearly reading off of a script in his dedicated YouTube videos, he just unconsciously doesn't move his hands because he's focused on the teleprompter. It's very possible that simply reading off of a script causes someone to tense up so as to not distract themselves, and I think that's just what's happening in this case. So I'd say it's most likely that, despite the nature of these videos seeming very awkward, Egon is actually the one speaking in these videos. In fact, Corridor Digital, which is a very well-respected team of VFX artists that you've probably seen on YouTube, briefly covered Egon Cholakian in a video where they exposed AI scams. And in this video, they concluded that none of the videos on Egon's channel that depict Egon talking were generated by AI. What I think is happening here is that Egon Cholakian is using AI upscaling to make his video quality look better. I also think that the very uncanny nature of the photos on this website are a result of AI upscaling because a lot of these pictures contain details that AI image generation would not be able to replicate. We can clearly make out the words Bernard P. McDonough Hall in this image, which is a real location, although the words appear very blurry, and so do the faces in the image. I think the fact that these images are all of very high resolution and are clearly blurry but not pixelated shows that Egon is using AI upscaling to make his images look better, as opposed to outright generating the images with AI. Except for this one though, these images were definitely 100% AI. I would also like to mention something pretty interesting here, although the circumstances surrounding this detail are kind of blurry and I can't verify anything for sure here. Allegedly, Egon Cholakian himself actually denied that AI is used in the process of making his videos. There's a YouTube channel called Meme Ranch, and it seems to be a couple of guys who run a podcast. One of the videos on the Meme Ranch channel is called I Got a Call from Dr. Egon Cholakian, Down the Rabbit Hole. And in this video, these two guys discuss how one of them, out of nowhere, got a phone call from Egon Cholakian. The guy got the phone call the morning after he started researching the whole thing, but they never really established why Egon called him or how Egon even got his phone number. Now, the guy did actually provide a recording of the call, and I'll admit, it sounds like Egon. I also don't think the audio was AI generated, as there are a lot of stutters and stuff like that, which an AI voice wouldn't really be able to replicate. I'll play you some of the audio from that call now.
Okay, the other thing too that I have a question about is like the YouTuber Destiny, like he was really, you know, like looking into this, and he had questions about whether there was like any sort of AI being used in some of your videos because they're exorbitantly kind of long. And it's just kind of like you like sitting there, standing still for most of the time. I'm wondering if you use like any of those technologies, like whenever you make videos, just to kind of help like get your like messages across. I mean, no shame in doing that, but I'm just wondering if
No. Any questions? Fine with me. I have no problem with that whatsoever. You and I have known each other 20 years. I want to beat you up on that level first. I'm 76. What would be the likelihood of me embracing AI and utilizing it or implementing it at my age? Not a whole lot, realistically.
Although it definitely sounds like a real human Egon, the way he talks is just really strange to me. Egon seemingly offered to let the guy ask whatever questions he wanted, but when he answers, he never really says anything.
So you wholeheartedly believe like the things that you profess, that there's like that in the next like 5 to 7-ish years, like there could be like a world-breaking moment that happens for us, like on a scale that we aren't fully prepared for, right?
Beautifully put. Thank you.
He speaks in such vague wording that nothing he says gives really any clear response to the questions that were asked. Also, at one point in the call, the guy from Meme Ranch asks Egon plainly if he uses AI in his videos, and for some reason, he just randomly says that he's been friends with this guy interviewing him for 20 years. That is both not true and completely unrelated to the discussion. And then he says, I want to beat you up on that level.
Wait, did you say we've known each other for 20 years?
No, I'm teasing you on that.
Okay.
I'm talking to you. I'm treating you on that level.
What could that possibly mean? The guy asks him what that meant, and he just said he was teasing. So, I don't know about all that. Anyway, Egon denies the use of AI in his videos, but also says that he's not the one who handles the production of the videos, so he doesn't really know. I'm really conflicted about this phone call. The circumstances around it are so strange, and there's so much context missing, but at the same time, I don't think it could have been faked by AI, and these guys do seem genuinely interested in the rabbit hole, as opposed to just trying to get some attention. I just wanted to include this to make sure that I cover this topic to its extent. So far, we know that Egon Cholakian is a real guy who just lies about his references and accolades. We also know, however, that despite Egon not being completely generated by AI, much of the engagement with his videos clearly comes from AI. So I'd like to take a further look at that before we get into the overarching religious movement / cult that Egon represents. So we've established that Egon himself is not AI. However, there are several components of his YouTube channel that definitely were generated with AI. On the Earth Save Science collaborative channel, there is an 8.5-hour long video. If you put this on before going to bed, it would still be on when you woke up. This video was generated entirely by AI, and I don't think they're even trying to hide it. I mean, it looks atrocious.
Representatives of anti-cultism use methods of covert programming to influence a person's subconscious to commit a how do they manage to code a teenager to execute their malicious will?
And also, what about the audience of these videos? Are they even real people? Now, I'm sure many of you have heard of the streamer Destiny. Destiny started out streaming in 2011, but shifted in the mid-2010s to mostly doing political debates against right-wing public figures. On one of Destiny's live streams in September of 2024, someone posted a link in chat to one of the videos by Egon Cholakian.
In chat, somebody brings up a YouTube video of this guy.
Hello, my name is Egon Cholakian.
Okay, he's got a very unique name. He's got very strong credentials, but I can't actually find good information about, like, who it is.
Destiny started going down the rabbit hole, getting pretty confused, and then eventually ended the stream without any conclusive answers about the whole situation. However, once Destiny had ended the stream, there were still some people talking in his chat room about Egon. Then a new account started talking called net_helpmsg_2221, which is obviously a very human username.
This account shows up in chat. The name is net_helpmessage_2221. And he says, are people saying this Cholakian guy isn't real? I found a court document that looks like from a case involving the guy. Dude looks unhinged in it. And then he tags Cyber Vegan, who's helping me look at things, and then he tags me with the court document. This is at I think 3 a.m.
This account was defending Egon and provided a link to a government document in order to prove that Egon was real. The document provided seemingly outlines a court case from 2018 between Alan Egon Cholakian and the FBI, among several other government entities. Now, at a glance, this document might look pretty official, but the thing is, the word Massachusetts is misspelled on the first page.
Massachusetts.
That doesn't happen in official government documents. Destiny traced the Twitch account that gave the link to this document and found that the account was made 2 minutes before sending its first message in the chat.
And it registered with the email 4destiny13337@gmail.com. Account was created minutes before typing this message in chat. No smurfs, no other hits on this IP address, no other messages in chat ever. Open this court case. I don't know what the I'm looking at.
This is strong evidence that the account was a bot. Additionally, if we go to the comments of Egon's most recent video, which was published 10 days ago as of the time I'm writing this. Oh my gosh, he just dropped a video an hour ago. Alright, so if we go to the comments of Egon's second most recent video, which was published about 2 weeks ago, we can see that there are only 2 comments, and the video has 13,000 views. Now, this is possible, but in general, most videos with even fewer views than this one have a lot more than 2 comments, especially when this video is centered around a topic that's going to be likely to stir some controversy. If we go to the account of one of these channels that made a comment, we will find dozens of re-uploads of clips from Egon Cholakian's videos, and plenty of other videos that were also clearly generated by a script. We're also going to start to notice some patterns. Specifically, we see the repeated mentioning of something called Allatra. In fact, one of these videos is a clip from Egon's channel where he's talking about Allatra.
The organization Allatra, whose scientific developments have brought colossal benefits to your country and to the world, has also fallen under this repressive wheel driven by Nazi ambitions.
If we go to another channel commenting on Egon's videos, we see more mentions of Allatra, and this is where things get really strange. If we go to this channel, which has only commented under one of Egon's videos, we notice this channel has no videos. But if we go to its community posts tab, we will find a link posted to what is seemingly the official website for Allatra, and at the bottom, there are links to several of Egon's videos. But these videos aren't posted to the channel we've been looking at, Earth Save Science Collaborative. These videos are being posted to a channel called Time for Truth, and they are the exact same videos. But on this channel, we'll find a video called What is Allatra?
What the best climate models predicted would happen in 150 years is happening right now. Scientists have acknowledged their models are failing in the face of the ongoing abnormal changes. These models can neither explain the causes of natural disasters nor protect people from their consequences. Allatra International Public Movement. Allatra participants have openly discussed the true scale of natural disasters and emphasized the dangers of the Siberian magma plume. However, this truth turned out to be inconvenient for certain power groups in Russia. They fear that the country's population and the global community might learn about the real threat of a Siberian magma plume eruption, and this information would undermine their personal profits.
So, I mentioned Allatra briefly at the beginning of the video, but I haven't really established what it is. Essentially, Allatra is a pseudoscientific new religious movement that was founded in Ukraine in 2012, but also operates in Russia. According to their own website, the Allatra International Public Movement is a volunteer-driven initiative that unites participants from over 180 countries. The main goal of Allatra International Public Movement is to study natural disasters and geodynamic changes happening across the planet and to initiate open discussions on developing effective solutions to the global climate crisis. The movement serves as a platform for uniting initiatives, projects, and ideas focused on building a sustainable global society capable of ensuring the safety and well-being of current and future generations. At the same time, Allatra's work is focused on preserving and protecting human rights and freedoms. It highlights the need to strengthen global mutual understanding in order to tackle pressing issues and emphasizes the priority of human life amid large-scale climate challenges. Allatra describes itself as a scientific movement focused on climate change. So why have I referred to it as a religious movement? Well, the beliefs of Allatra are focused around a man named Igor Mikhailovich Danilov, who is presumed to be publishing books under the fake name Anastasia Novich. Danilov claims to be the reincarnation of Buddha, Jesus, and Muhammad, which seems unlikely, but let's move on. Danilov was a Ukrainian coal miner in the city of Kyiv, and in 2002 opened a chiropractic spine clinic. In 2003, he published his first book, which depicted himself as a prophet who is like the ultimate person who everyone should strive to be. Now, this book actually turned out to have been written by a woman named Halina Yablochkina, who Danilov would go on to start the Allatra movement with. Allatra is very vague and nondescript with their explanations of their theories, along with the science behind their theories, but Danilov is credited as one of the scientists who created the movement's geophysical research model. Danilov presents himself modestly, claiming that he is simply a participant and a volunteer within the movement. But if that were the case, he probably wouldn't claim to be the culmination of three of the world's most prominent religious figures. So, now in 2023, Ukraine issued a warrant for the arrest of Danilov, along with some other Allatra leaders, for high treason, as the Ukrainian government suspected them of collaborating with Russian intelligence. After the warrant was put out, Danilov failed to appear for questioning, and now supposedly appears on the Ukraine Ministry of Internal Affairs list of individuals hiding from authorities, although I wasn't able to go through all 6,000 pages of people, and I couldn't for the life of me figure out the search function. So, if these people are so disdained by the Ukrainian government, and they seem to be down on their knees for Vladimir Putin, they must be loved by the Russian government. Well, unfortunately, the Ministry of Justice of Russian Affairs has labeled Allatra and its practices as undesirable in Russia. Additionally, the true president of the Allatra movement, who is a woman named Marina Ovtsinova, has been wrapped up in several large-scale conflicts involving Russia's anti-cult organization. Isn't that something? On the official Allatra website, they detail how Marina Ovtsinova has been persecuted by this organization various times for leading what Russia's government deems to be a cult. Danilov, Yablochkina, and Ovtsinova have held their interesting beliefs since the early 2000s, and eventually got Allatra founded in 2012. But what is their actual belief system like? Alright, so we know that Allatra at least somewhat focuses on climate and geophysical research, because that's what they told us. What they don't really outright mention, however, is how they repeatedly make incredibly alarming and absurd claims, essentially saying that the world is going to end by some unstoppable natural disaster unless everybody joins the Allatra movement. They've made claims that the United States is soon to break out into another civil war, that rising ocean temperatures are going to heat the Earth's core to the point of a cataclysmic eruption of the Mariana Trench, and when they discuss these apparently urgent disasters, they use intentionally vague wording and often describe things in a way so technical that no common person is going to fully understand. And that's what they want. This is ultimately done to scare people into joining the Allatra movement. They publish these books that describe how you can become the best version of yourself by adopting Allatra's beliefs and essentially praising this random chiropractor as your sole god. What does this guy know about being a god? You can find videos of Igor Danilov that are similar to Egon's, but Danilov's tend to focus more on spiritual growth and what he calls the Creative Society. The Creative Society is an organization which extends directly from Allatra and is also headed by Igor Danilov. According to their website, their values include the development of friendly relations among nations, protection of human rights, and the advancement of sustainable development. And what's interesting about the Creative Society's website is that despite the organization being directly tied to and operated by the Allatra movement, it is nearly impossible to find a single mention of Allatra on the Creative Society's website. That's weird. Maybe Danilov wanted a campaign separate from the Allatra movement, which has had its reputation run into the ground, so they can recruit people who don't know it's connected to Allatra. I think the ideologies and practices of Allatra are pretty reminiscent of an idea called utopian social engineering, which was explored by philosopher Karl Popper in his book, The Open Society and Its Enemies. In this book, Karl discusses, among other things, what he sees as the two different branches of social engineering. Now, social engineering is essentially the process of influencing the attitudes, behaviors, and overall cognition of people on a large scale. Social engineering is most often conducted by governmental entities. For example, the counterintelligence program conducted by the United States FBI from 1956 to 1971 aimed to discredit and diminish the beliefs and influence of several American political activist organizations such as anti-Vietnam War organizers, the American Indian Movement, feminist organizations, and civil rights activists like Martin Luther King Jr. and the Black Panther Party. In fact, in 1964, the FBI anonymously mailed Martin Luther King Jr. a suicide letter in an attempt to persuade him to take his own life. This would be an example of rather intense social engineering by a governmental entity, as they were trying to massively influence how people viewed and respected organizations that the FBI found subversive to American values. However, social engineering doesn't always have to be bad. In the 1970s, Finland began reforming their education system by decreasing the frequency and importance of standardized tests and eliminating a lot of the financial barriers that might have historically prevented a lot of students from reaching their highest potential. This is an example of social engineering because it aimed to change the way people viewed and interacted with the education system in Finland and ultimately modify society in the country. In this case, for the better. Karl Popper's two branches of social engineering are utopian social engineering and piecemeal social engineering. Piecemeal social engineering is the process of the gradual reform of society, occurring through several small steps taken every day to make society better. This is the most widely practiced form of social engineering because it works. Taking small steps to better a society is the best way to change a society because you'll find out what works and what doesn't without causing catastrophic damage to any components of the community. This leads us to utopian or holistic social engineering. This is a type of social engineering that essentially aims to completely overhaul society into one where everyone is happy and everything works. Karl Popper criticizes this approach because you're essentially going in blind and trying to make everyone happy without really understanding the intricacies of the society you're trying to reform. Without small-scale experiments, how are you supposed to know what works for each small component within a society? You can't, and that's why a holistic reworking of society wouldn't work at all. A holistic approach to societal reform is like trying to repair a broken antique clock by destroying it and then rebuilding it from scratch. You never identified the root of the problem and instead just tried to rebuild the whole thing, and chances are it still doesn't work when you rebuild it. If you had gone in and adjusted each component in the clock individually and checked if it worked, you would not only have solved the problem in a much more effective manner, but you'd also find the root of the issue and have solved the problem in the first place. Allatra is promising a holistic benefit to not only your mental health, but also the future of society, and all you have to do is subscribe to their set of scientific and spiritual beliefs, all the while being constantly encouraged to donate to the cause. Allatra scares people into joining their cause by lying about their credibility and then presenting these incredibly bold and frightening conspiracy theories about the end of humanity as fact, explaining them in a way so simultaneously technical and vague that people who aren't trained to look for every red flag and people who are in a vulnerable spot are forced to believe it. In this video, where Egon Cholakian claims a Siberian plume is soon to erupt and destroy the entire continent of Europe, he literally encourages people to constantly remind themselves of the upcoming event, keeping them in a constant state of fear.
Within 2 days, this information, so urgent and vivid today, will begin to fade. The sense of immediacy will dull. Your attention will shift. The impulse to act will dissolve. What now feels crystal clear will start to seem distant, abstract, like something that doesn't concern you. This is not your fault. It is a mechanism built into the human psyche, and herein lies one of the primary causes of global silence. This is why so many people resist hearing the bitter truth, let alone sharing it. It is a form of psychological paralysis. Until we as a society recognize this internal mechanism and learn to confront it, even the most vital knowledge and the most urgent scientific warnings will continue to disappear from public consciousness before they ever become action.
And when Allatra presents itself as a global initiative that protects human rights and freedoms, somebody in a constant state of fear might look to this and see it as something they want to be a part of, so they can unite with like-minded people during this period of global political and geological unrest. Now, all of this got me to thinking, why are they doing this? Sure, it could just be for the sake of gaining mass influence, since in reality, they shouldn't really be making that much money. The organization claims to get all of its funding from volunteer donations, and if we're to trust this Ukrainian news outlet that did a deep dive into the finances of Allatra, they only make about $200,000 a year from donations. And that's a lot of money, but does it really justify all the effort this organization has put into seeming legitimate? You know, I guess Allatra is really just doing this out of all their care for people and their wish for everyone to be safe during the inevitable alien invasion that should be coming any day now. Well, I think we both know that's not the case. If we go to a 2017 archive of the Allatra website on the Wayback Machine, we'll find a now deleted section of the website called Partners. And interestingly, on this page, we'll find a list of dozens of different companies from around the world that are seemingly partnered with Allatra in providing financial support and publicity. One of these companies is Igor Danilov's own Clinic of Vertebrorevitology, which I looked up and appears to be Danilov's independent medical innovation, which allows for the regeneration of intervertebral discs. Now, of course, Danilov is lying. If this were real, we might be able to cure causes of paralysis and chronic back pain and neck pain, but either Danilov is holding on to these breakthrough findings just for fun, or he's lying. In our current medical standing, intervertebral discs are not able to be fully regenerated after injury. Other than a few of Danilov's own companies, there are several Ukrainian, European, and Czech companies that are seemingly quite powerful and are likely the basis of Allatra's comfortable economic standing. Allatra has dozens of representatives around the world, each of whom have individual Allatra organizations designated for their location. There are Allatra organizations in the United States, the Czech Republic, Great Britain, and several other countries. All in all, while it's kind of up for debate whether or not Allatra is a real cult, it is definitely a manipulative and harmful organization which preys on those who are mentally vulnerable in order to gain global power and money. Igor Danilov is a strategically deceptive spokesperson, and so is Egon Cholakian. And Marina Ovtsinova, as the official leader of Allatra, has an equally nebulous and malicious history with political involvement and her leadership of Allatra. At the end of the day, it's up to you to decide what you want to believe, and there's no harm in that. The harm comes from trying to push your beliefs on others who don't share them, especially when you're pushing categorically false information onto people who are vulnerable in order to make money off of them. That's where I draw the line. And I think that's going to do it for today's video. I really enjoyed making this one. I think it's a really interesting topic, and I'm honestly surprised that not that many people have talked about it on YouTube. If you enjoyed this style of video, let me know in the comments, because I think I'd like to make more videos like this. Anyway, thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.